I helped him get his visa. He left to live with someone else and blocked me from everything. I signed so he could dream, and in his dream, there was no room for me. Some people cross your path and make you feel that everything has been worth it. And then there are those who come, kiss you with promises, wrap you in plans, and when you've given them everything, they leave as if you never existed. I met Isaac in a small cafe near the university. It wasn't romantic at first. Just a chat about international politics that ended with us laughing at our own contradictions. But when he texted me that same night saying, "I can't remember the last time someone made me think so much and laugh at the same time," I already knew there was something different about him. Isaac was Colombian. He came to the United States on a student visa with just enough to survive. You could tell, worn-out shoes, recycled clothes, but an intact smile. I, on the other hand, was local. Just an ordinary girl with a scholarship, a part-time job, and a weakness for accents. For months, we were friends. He never asked me for anything. He just shared his nostalgia, his dreams, his struggle to adapt to a country that, at times, seemed not to want him. And I, stupidly, fell in love. A year later, we were already living together. Not because we planned it, but because Isaac was denied the lease renewal on his shared room, and I offered him the couch for a couple of weeks. Those weeks turned into months, and then into a shared life. We lived in a tiny apartment. He cooked on Mondays and Wednesdays. I paid for almost everything else, but I didn't mind, because he would say, "One day I'll pay you back 1,000 times over." When his visa expiration date got closer, I noticed a change in him. He got nervous with every email, checked the mailbox every 2 hours, and one night, while I was doing the dishes, he said, "There's an option, but I need your help." I dried my hands and looked at him. "What kind of help?" He explained that there was a possibility of staying if he got a sponsor who could guarantee his financial support. Or, ideally, a work visa with a support letter from a resident or citizen. I already knew where that was going. "Do you want it to be me?" I asked. He lowered his gaze, embarrassed. "Only if you're sure. I would never demand it from you." And he didn't. He never pressured me. But I did it anyway. Out of love. Out of fear of losing him. For all the times he told me that without me, he'd feel lost. We filed the paperwork, paid the forms, shaped a dream that wasn't mine, but I made it mine to carry him through. For months passed, and one day the approval came. I remember his shout of joy, his tears, how he lifted me off the ground and spun me around the living room like we were two teenagers winning the lottery. We did it. Together. And yes, I cried too, because I thought that together meant us, not just him. Little by little, new things started to arrive. A better job, new friends, invitations where I didn't fit in. Conversations became shorter, hugs colder, nights longer without him. One night I asked, "Is something wrong?" And he said, "I'm just exhausted, Emma. Too many changes, too many responsibilities. Not everything revolves around you." That sentence broke my soul, because I never made anything revolve around me. I always revolved around him. Then came the networking outings, the opportunity meetings, and one day, I saw a notification on his phone. A message from a girl. "Lovely meeting you. That pizza thing was hilarious, haraha." I didn't say anything. I just asked, my voice trembling, "Who's Olivia?" He looked at me like I was an intruder in his life. "A friend. You're getting paranoid." And the worst part is that I believed him. One Friday night, after he left for a dinner with important contacts, something inside me broke. It wasn't jealousy. It was that piercing feeling of slowly being forgotten. The next day, I decided to go find him. I took a bus and arrived at the restaurant he said he'd be at. He wasn't there. I called. No answer. Sent messages. Silence. 2 days later, he blocked me from everything. Instagram, WhatsApp, even the emergency number we had saved in case something serious happened. I disappeared from his world. Just like that. In an instant, a mutual friend messaged me a week later. "Did you see this?" She sent me a screenshot. Isaac, smiling, with a woman, in a park, in a different country, Canada. My stomach turned. "Is that Olivia?" I asked. "No. Her name is Rachel." I didn't understand anything. How did he leave? With whom? Why did he cut me out of his life like that? I spent hours trying to contact someone who knew anything. Most didn't reply anymore, because of course he was telling his version. And in that version, I was the needy, crazy woman who smothered him. I spent weeks crying, months not understanding. I questioned everything. Was I used? Was I just a ladder for him to climb and then kick away? Did he ever love me? I answered myself, yes, but not like I loved him. Not with the same devotion. Not with the same faith. One night, months later, while checking my email, I found something that made me tremble. A receipt for an international transfer I had made in his name for one of the procedures. And I saw the IP address from which he had updated the form. Toronto, Canada. The name on the attached file, Isaac Morales and Rachel Hill, partner residency application. Date, 2 weeks after his visa was approved with me as his sponsor. That's when I understood everything. He had planned it all along, long before, and I was just a stepping stone, a signature, a story he had already decided to end before even writing the last chapter. But what hurts the most is not the betrayal. It's that he never told me to my face. He never gave me the right to fight, to argue, to scream at him that he broke me. He erased me, as if I had never mattered. And that is a wound I don't know if will ever close. After Rachel's message, I didn't sleep, not a minute. Not because I wanted to reply, not even because I was curious. It was the simple fact that someone far away had said my name after so long. And it wasn't him. Isaac was still missing, as if his version of me had been a file deleted from his operating system. There were no photos, no traces, just emptiness, and that echo abandonment leaves behind. Why wasn't I enough? 3 days went by. I didn't answer the message, but I spent those 3 days imagining all the possible reasons why Rachel would want to talk to me. None of them were encouraging. None brought justice. Only more questions. So I made the decision to leave it all behind. I closed my social media for a while, changed my routine. I started taking pottery classes at night, not because I was interested, but because I needed to keep my hands busy. My hands, my eyes, my heart. But nothing filled the hole he left in me. One Sunday afternoon, I went grocery shopping. I was in the produce section, picking avocados, when I heard that laugh. That laugh. A dry, loud, broken up laugh. One I knew perfectly. I turned so fast I almost knocked over the basket. And there he was, Isaac, less than 10 feet away, wearing a new t-shirt, expensive jeans, and that sparkle in his eyes he used to have only when he talked about dreams. Now he had it next to another woman. Tall, blonde, very different from me. It wasn't Rachel. It was someone else. He didn't see me, or if he did, he ignored me with expertise. I hid in the aisles like a coward, not because of him, because of me, because my body trembled with indignation, with helplessness, with the knowledge that he walked through the world so calmly while I was still picking up the pieces of what we were. I left the supermarket with burning eyes. I got on the wrong bus, and when I got home, I vomited, not because I was sick, but because the soul also has ways of expelling pain. That night, I opened my laptop. I searched his name on Google. I saw his new company. I saw a talk he gave at a local university. I saw an article that said, Isaac Morales is an example of effort and perseverance. He arrived in the country with just the basics, and today leads a tech innovation team aiming to conquer the North American market. An immigrant with vision. There he was, without me.
Not a single line about me.
Not a word of gratitude. The next day, I went to work with dark circles under my eyes. My boss looked at me with concern, but said nothing. No one did. Only Jessica, a new colleague, offered me a coffee in silence and said, "You look like someone with a story. No one deserves to live." And she was right, but I didn't tell her, because sometimes telling the story doesn't heal it. It just opens it up again. Weeks went by, and one day, without knowing why, I found myself outside the university where he studied. I don't know if I was looking for ghosts or closing circles. I walked through the halls. I sat on the bench where we used to have lunch with a single sandwich split in two. I remembered his voice saying, "One day, you're going to be proud you bet on me." And I was.
For a long time.
Until he stopped being mine. Until I realized I had bet alone. A couple of days later, I ran into a girl who had known Isaac from afar. We used to take classes together years ago. She greeted me warmly. "Emma, it's been so long." And then, without thinking, she said, "I heard about Isaac. Did you know he got engaged?" My body tensed. Engaged? Yeah, to someone named Anna, a Canadian businesswoman. Looks like they're working together now.
Anna.
Not Rachel, not Olivia, another one. I saw it all so clearly in that moment, it gave me a headache. It wasn't that he left me for someone else. It was that I had never been the only one. That night I wrote in my journal, how many versions of himself did he have while promising me the world? And how many versions of me did he edit just to not feel guilty? One day, I dared to go to a local art exhibition. My idea was to isolate myself. But life is ironic. I ran into the mother of a former classmate of Isaac's. She recognized me immediately. "Emma, right? It's been so long."
"How are you?"
I answered with a polite smile.
"Fine.
Everything's okay. I remember when you used to come to the games, you were always there with Isaac." And without pause, "Did you hear about the Canadian residency?" It was through a company that helped him, but I heard there was prior backing. Someone signed the endorsement for him, right? It was me, I said. It slipped out without thinking, like vomit, like a sentence.
The woman looked at me. She didn't say anything.
But she lowered her gaze, and that was worse than any word.
I started to notice small things after that. People avoiding me.
Friends who no longer greeted me. The narrative had been written. Isaac was the success story, and I was the previous page, the one you tear out, the one not worth reading. One night, I dared to enter a support forum for people who had been abandoned after going through a shared immigration process. I read similar stories. Stories of abandonment. Stories of invisibility. And one phrase hit me like a knife. Some people only want you while you're useful. Once they achieve their goal, your humanity no longer weighs on them. I was a weight. I was the anchor. And when Isaac needed to fly, he dropped the ballast. Almost a year went by after all of that. I heard nothing more about him, but on a random Sunday, I opened Instagram, and among the suggested stories, an image popped up. Isaac, in Paris, with another woman. The caption read, "Sometimes, life gives you the right person in the right country." I was the wrong person, in the right country, so he could move to the next level.
I didn't cry.
I didn't scream. I just turned off my phone and started packing a suitcase, not to leave the country, but to leave his shadow. I took out everything I had of him, forgotten t-shirts, mugs with phrases we used to say, notes, photos, and I threw it all away, not out of revenge, but for liberation. A week later, Jessica, my coworker, invited me for coffee. We talked about random things until suddenly she said, "Emma, I didn't want to tell you before, but Isaac came by the office recently. He had a meeting with the executive director. The blood drained from my body." "What?" "He saw you. I'm sure of it. He came in, saw you through the glass, and pretended not to see you. But it showed. He was nervous. Very nervous. And what did he do?" Jessica looked at me. "He smiled for the camera and kept walking, like nothing, like you never existed." I don't know how long I stared at my coffee cup. Jessica had dropped the bomb with total softness, as if that made the explosion less painful. Isaac had seen me, at my workplace, in the very space where I spent my days trying not to think about him, and simply pretended I didn't exist. What was he doing here? I asked, my throat dry. Jessica shrugged, uncomfortable. They invited him for an investment round. He's working with a business incubator. Our CEO knows him. They say he's brilliant. 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 What a cruel word when you're in the dark. I left the office on autopilot that day. I didn't greet anyone. I didn't go home. I sat in a nearby park, watching the evening fall. I listened to kids laughing, couples chatting, old men arguing about politics. Everything kept moving.
Except me.
I was frozen, still, like a ghost, as if he had left me suspended between life and memory. That night, I returned to my journal, but I wasn't writing to heal anymore. I was writing to remember, because I refused to let my story disappear. He wasn't a phase. He was a sacrifice. And the victims of sacrifice also have a voice. A few days later, an internal email began circulating at the company. New mentorship program with innovation leaders. There was his name, Isaac Morales. He would return to the company as a guest mentor. In the same building, in the same hallway, just one door away. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to seem pathetic or like a victim. It was enough to have to live it. The day he arrived, I hid in an empty conference room, not because I was afraid to see him, but because I didn't trust what I'd do if I did. My hands were shaking, my chest burned, and that cold, heavy rage felt like oil running through my veins. Not because of love, because of injustice, because of everything he built on my shoulders and then called his own achievement. A week later, I got an email from him. Yes, him. After so many months. It was short. "Hi, Emma. I know this may be uncomfortable. I just want to say I have no problem with you. I hope we can coexist professionally without resentment. I wish you the best." I read that message 10 times. I have no problem with you. What about me? What about my sleepless nights? What about my interrupted life? What about my dreams that I reshaped for his? I didn't reply. I had nothing to say to him. But what hurt me the most was that he never said thank you, not even once, as if my role in his life had been just a procedure, a stepping stone. And now that he was in his tower of success, I was just an administrative memory. Some people at the office started praising him. He's a very focused guy. Very confident. He has an impressive story. Did you know he came to the country alone, with nothing, and now owns 3 companies? I bit my tongue. I didn't want to be the ex. I didn't want to seem bitter.
But it burned inside me.
Because he didn't come alone.
He came with me.
And now the world was celebrating him without knowing that in his luggage, he carried my whole life. One night, I drank wine alone. Too much. And I don't know what pushed me to do it, but I opened my fake account, the one I had since all this started, and looked up Rachel, the girl who had messaged me that time. I sent her a message.
Hi.
Sorry for not replying sooner. Why did you write to me? Hours passed.
Days.
And then a reply. Because I saw what he did to you. Because I thought maybe I owed you an explanation. But I realized it wasn't my place. He already had plans while he was with you. I just thought you deserved to know. I'm sorry. Truly. And that's when it became clear. Isaac didn't leave me because he changed countries. He didn't block me because it was easier. He abandoned me because he already had another way out ready. Because I was just the bridge to his new life. And no one stays to live on a bridge. I started leaving work early, avoiding hallways, avoiding meetings, until one day during an internal event, we crossed paths, face to face. There was no way to escape. Emma, he said, smiling like we were acquaintances, not living history. So good to see you. I just looked at him, but he insisted. Aren't you going to say hello?
Why?
I answered, emotionless. You already got everything you needed from me.
His face changed.
Just for a second, but it was enough. And before he could say anything else, I kept walking, leaving him behind, literally, and finally, emotionally. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in a year. But the next day, when I got to my desk, I found a handwritten note. You have no idea what you're doing. No signature, no seal, just that sentence on my desk. I stared at the paper. My heart raced. I felt it like a threat, or a warning, or a confession. I said nothing, but I started watching everything around me.
Looks.
Silences. Whispers. Isaac still had power, and now he was willing to use it. That same afternoon, Jessica called me over to her desk. She was pale. Emma, you need to see this. On her screen, a forwarded internal email, a proposal to restructure the team. My name was among the positions under review. Coincidence? Or simply an elegant revenge? The following weeks were a silent parade of shoves disguised as reorganization. At first, it was minor tasks taken away, without explanation. Then came the meetings I was no longer invited to. And after that strange silence, the one you feel when others know something you don't. Jessica, my only ally, tried to warn me without raising suspicion. Be careful, she said one afternoon, while staring at her screen. Not everyone here is who they seem to be. Her voice was barely a whisper, almost a plea, but I already knew. Isaac had started pulling strings. Strings I didn't even know he had. Strings that, apparently, I had helped him weave. One Friday, I was asked to go to the HR office. I knew what was coming. I felt it in the way people avoided eye contact as I passed, in the way the receptionist greeted me with pity. They offered me water. I almost smiled. It's funny how even corporate betrayals come with courtesy. Your position has been absorbed by a new unit. It's not a personal decision. It's part of the transformation process. I didn't cry, didn't protest. I just signed. I knew fighting would be like speaking to a wall. And that wall had a name. Isaac. I walked out of the building with a cardboard box in my arms. The few things left from my desk: a dry plant, some notebooks with notes, a mug that said coffee fuels greatness that, ironically, he had given me. I saw my reflection in the glass door as I exited. Was that me? That woman alone? Tired, empty? I didn't know. I went back to the apartment I worked so hard to furnish. The one he never knew. The one I built from the ruins of what he left behind. And for 3 days, I didn't talk to anyone. I ate saltine crackers, watched TV on mute. The phone didn't ring. Not a single call. Not a single apology. No one expected me to fall apart, because no one imagined how much it had cost me to get here. The following Monday, I woke up to an email from Jessica.
Emma.
I need you. Something's wrong. I'm attaching an audio file. Don't share it, but listen to it. I downloaded it with trembling hands. It was a recording of an informal meeting at the office. Isaac speaking. No, she's not going to do anything. I know her. She was always useful but naive. What I needed from her I already have. Whatever comes next isn't my problem. The rage I felt wasn't because of what he said, but because he was right. He knew me. He knew I wouldn't do anything, that I would endure it, that I would simply let the world swallow it all. I turned off the audio, closed the laptop, and that afternoon, for the first time in weeks, I went out, not to seek comfort, not to seek revenge. I went out to remind myself that I could still walk with steady feet. I entered a cafe where no one knew me, sat in a corner, and I wrote a letter, but not for him, not for anyone in particular. I wrote my story, no embellishments, no lies, without omitting the times I failed myself. I wrote about what it was like to start from scratch in a foreign country, what it was like to support someone without him realizing I was falling apart too, how much it hurt to watch him bloom while I withered. I published it on an anonymous blog, one of those spaces where women share their experiences without fear of being called crazy, dramatic, or bitter. The next day, it had hundreds of views. By the end of the week, thousands. People wrote, commented, related. They didn't know they were talking about Isaac. And that made it better. It wasn't about exposing him. It was about exposing the pattern, the story, the repeated pain of many. But not everything was applause. One day, while checking my mailbox, I found an envelope with no sender. It only contained a printed sheet with the phrase, "You're becoming too visible." I took it as a warning, as mockery, or maybe both. Whatever it was, it didn't stop me. With the little savings I had, I started a virtual workshop called Emotional Reconstruction for Migrants. I wasn't a therapist or a guru, just a survivor. And each week, more women joined. Latinas, Asians, Europeans, different stories, the same cycle. One day, in one of those sessions, a woman told me through tears, "My partner had me get him a visa. He promised he'd come back for me. Now he doesn't even answer my messages." And I realized I wasn't the only one. I was just another chapter in a book that never stops being written. But then something unexpected happened. Jessica wrote to me again. They're nominating Isaac for a Social Innovation Award. They're presenting him as a model of resilience and migrant effort. No one at the company knows the real story. If you don't tell it, he'll win. I spent 3 days thinking about what to do, writing to the press, telling what happened. But who would believe me? Who would want to hear the version of the bitter ex? And yet, the fire in my chest burned stronger than ever. Not for him, but for all those who never had a voice. So I wrote an email, signed it with my real name, attached evidence, dates, messages, transfer records, everything. And I sent it. I didn't know if they read it. I didn't know if it worked. Until one day, in a random cafe, I heard on the radio, Isaac Morales, the young migrant entrepreneur who is in the running for the National Innovation Award, has been removed from the finalist due to inconsistencies in his personal and professional history. The sponsoring company has declined to give further details.
I didn't cry. I didn't laugh.
I just gripped my cup tightly. It was the first time I didn't feel guilty for winning something.